fog climbs towers of forgotten stone. A kingdom veiled where time's unknown. VHS scrolls with static breath tell stories that I left in. They say the North Star plays the scene, a reel of God's own silver dream. The angels mic, the thunder sound, grip the clouds and move around. They say it's the kingdom lost in rain, where the heavens splice our joy and pain. Every droplet writes a line in the film that loops through time. The crown is rust, but eyes still gleam, lit by projectors' ancient beam. We pray the static of fear. Fast forward hope, rewind the year. Castle halls with TV light, angel scripts in black and white. The choir hums in mono sound, a sacred loop where gods are found. This is the kingdom lost in rain, where the heavens splice our joy and pain. Every droplet writes a line in the film that loops through time. Silent cut, sing return is in return.
Welcome to a impromptu solo space with King of Channel KOK. Hello everyone listening to the playback on this. I might even upload this one to YouTube. So hello if you're listening on any other platform. Today I will be kind of soft launching a series that I've been tossing around the back of my head for a little bit now, a few months, if not a year, called AniMason. A place where I can talk more about animated films and TV shows. Of course, I've talked about Spider-Verse and Elemental on channel KOK's YouTube. In particular, our Kingdom Reviews series. So go check out those if you want more animated stuff. Like Kingdom Reviews is really supposed to be me reviewing film in a more esoteric kind of sense. And I didn't really feel like I should be having all of these animated stuff in Kingdom Reviews when the focus was supposed to be film. And so I I paused on some of the more animated stuff I wanted to get into and was focusing more on film. And I'm going to continue to do so with Kingdom Reviews, focus more on esoteric film reviews. AniMason was how I came up with trying to incorporate a space to talk about more animation. If you want more esoteric discussions on anime, Jin the Ninja has been doing quite a few, and it's really impressive. And I really like his um, fruit that he brings to the table from his perspective on these animes and animated films and series. Of course, the title AniMason is a play on animation and Masonic Freemasonry, secret societies, things like that. Just clever wordplay. So AniMason will be a place for me to discuss more animated material, and it will most likely also be on YouTube. The reason why this one is X Space is because how of impromptu this really is. Like I said, I might upload this to YouTube later. So without any further ado, let's get into the discussion today. Today's topic is the anime movie My Oni Girl. It was just released uh, on Netflix, and I never really look at what is coming to streaming or whatnot. I just happen to be perusing selections last night to see what I wanted to watch, and I wasn't even setting out to watch anime. I've been on the kick of more classical films from the golden age between 40s, 50s, and 60s. And this happened to come across My Oni Girl, and I watched the trailer for it and looked up the description. And I go, you know what? This might be a good kind of sweet little snack in between watching these uh, golden age Hollywood films. And so I just put on My Oni Girl, only getting a very brief synopsis from the trailer, really. And at first, it was quite average for what I thought it was going to be. Of coming of age, slight fantasy twist, tell. There's plenty of anime films that are in that wheelhouse. Some are good, some are average, some are not so good whatsoever, of course. And so I didn't really know where this one landed on that chart. And then I was quite surprised by it. Especially when it came to its symbolic resonance with polar symbolism. And that's why I wanted to do this space. Was to kind of just chat about it and kind of get it out, because I thought it was quite fascinating, because on Channel KOK we mention North Star polar symbolism, especially because our good friend Mario Garza of Symbolic Studies does such good work in that field and doing that research. And he's turned me on to multiple different researchers and authors who have talked about polar symbolism. People like Renee Ganon. And so I just kind of wanted to chat a little bit about that and some other stuff I noticed in the movie. So essentially, for a brief synopsis of My Oni Girl, is you have this main young boy who's young high school age, who is very quiet. He just really does what he's told. He doesn't really have cares of his own, and the little that he does, he doesn't feel like he can speak on it because his lack of courage, and he feels like he's unable to speak his true mind, get his inner voice, out, so to speak. One of those classic, speak from the heart motifs in storytelling. And you see people kind of take advantage of him, and he doesn't have a strong spine to really say anything about it. You have boys in his class taking his kindness on helping them clean up after class for granted and taking advantage of him by saying that they have better things to do, and leaving it up to him to clean up everything up after class. You see a girl in his class who it's not even very clear if they're truly friends or if they're just acquaintances from having the same class, asking him to go to a festival with her and pretend to be her boyfriend because she's been lying to her other female friends that she has a boyfriend. And he agrees to do so, but because of how uncomfortable and quiet he is, how awkward he is, how he doesn't really speak up much on anything, his lack of charisma, as one could say, his lack of character, the whole charade of him being her boyfriend kind of falls apart, and she kind of goes, "Well, thanks for nothing. I guess I should have never even asked you." It's like, and he just goes, "Okay," you know, and so he's being taken advantage of by all kinds of different classmates. And then, as he's walking home from the festival, kind of, beaten up by the day's uh, circumstances and happenings, he sees a another young girl around his age having trouble finding money to pay for public transportation on a bus, and he kind of sees it from the distance, and he starts to walk on, but then something pulls at him, something energetically, which we'll get to in a little bit because this has to do with how they use the idea of linear time and the fates, and how emotion and what you think and do in the present will echo to not just the future but the past as well, and how fates and time can get um, intertwined, and how things like when New Agers talk about manifesting, um, and the Stoics talk about controlling your reality by only focusing on your inner, because that's all you can control, and eventually you'll start having the outer world, you know, being responsive to you through your own controlling of your will, because you're not focusing on the outer, because really it's out of your control, because that's just fate and destiny, where your inner is your will. And then that's when you kind of will start weaving with your um, you know with the fates, with God, when you start working with the hands God dealt with you. So we'll get to that in a minute, because that comes back uh, towards the ending of the film and its conclusion. But he feels this pull, this, for the time being, let's say it's an energetic red string of fate. And he turns around and he decides to try to help this fellow young girl pay for her transportation, even though she kind of declines. It gets them talking, and he ends up inviting her over to his house for dinner, and that's where she meets his family, his mother, his father, and his younger sister. And we get to see his relationship with his father being kind of tested at the moment, because our main character here wants to go to cram school like everyone else in his class, and he's already applied for it and everything. His dad thinks he would be better off with a home private tutor, and so his dad arranges for him to have this home visit from a private tutor, and he tells him, "Hey, I got you a private tutor to help you with your grades." And our main character goes, "Well, I've already applied and arranged for my cram school like everyone else." And his dad's like, "No, I know what's best for you. Do as I say." And this is again one of those moments where our main character feels like he can uh, he can't speak up in what he truly desires and wants. So it's a lack of willpower, and he goes back up to his room, frustrated, and that's when we see like these energetic little white balls start leaving his body, and they refer to them as like snow. So all these energetic snow pieces start radiating from his body, and then this serpent, energetic dragon-like being. Maybe you can even say it's kind of like an eel, like some type of wormy fish. Um, Appears and starts attacking him, and everything starts to freeze. And this Oni girl that he has invited to his house senses what's going on, and she goes to go save him. And at the time, he doesn't know that she's an Oni. And she rescues him from this celestial snow beast, which they refer to as snow gods in the movie. So this snow god um, is attacking him. This Oni girl saves him, and they run out his window, and they run for a while into the night, and that's when she explains to our main character that she is indeed a Oni. She comes from a hidden secret town village of Oni beings that is located on a nearby mountain up towards the top, where it'll snow and ice all the time. That it's called, I think they refer to it as like the hidden village or the hidden town throughout the movie, and because it's hidden from humans. And she said that she left the earth because she wants to find her mom, because her mom left her dad when she was very young, and her dad won't tell her why. All he says is that she left and she's at some shrine, some temple in the human world, allegedly. And so she has left this hidden Oni village, left the mountain to go explore the human world and go find her mom. She has mixed feelings. She doesn't know whether to cry or to punch her mom or what. She has this array of emotions towards it. She just knows she has to go find her and figure out the truth of what's going on. And she doesn't know where the shrine is, but all she has is this trinket from this shrine that her mom is allegedly at. So she shows our main character this trinket, and he recognizes it and knows where the shrine is. So he goes to go take her to the shrine because this Oni girl asked him to. And so they leave for for their journey, their expedition in the middle of the night. And it's not said, but it's alluded to that this shrine is like towns away. It's not in the same town that they're in currently where he lives. So they go on this long journey together, and they meet multiple people that helps them along their journey. That they get to witness, you know, all these other people's lives and everything, and gets these touching moments, as many like road trip movies kind of do. And we see through all three of these people uh, that this Oni girl, who now she's revealed that she's Oni to our main character, obviously. Um, so the Oni girl and our main character, they're on the journey, and all these three people that they meet, they all have a similar situation from different walks of life. They all, for one reason or another, have a hard time speaking what they truly want, their their inner voice, just like our main character. And here's one of my critiques of the film, of the movie, is I wonder if at some point this was thought to maybe be an anime series instead of a movie, or maybe it's just the difference in storytelling techniques in the East versus the West. It feels like, because like I would say like every 10, 15 or so minutes they will move on to meeting another group of people and exploring their lives and their connection, and how this Oni girl and our main character helps them out along their journey, and how they get help from them. It almost feels very episodic in the way it's cut, like those hard cuts in between some of these scenes. So it almost feels like it's a sped up version of a episodic series instead of an actual feature length story. And so they meet these three groupings of people, they get help from them, they help them out to speak their inner voice or whatever, um, what they truly want to say. Meanwhile, of course, the Oni girl and the young boy are uh, they're supposed to be connecting more, and they do. We do get a sense that they are befriending each other, but this is also supposed to be like a light romance, like a blooming romance of these two young characters, and it's there. But I feel like maybe because there is such a large cast around them, which I think on one hand helps the story because we get to, they really hammer home that there's multiple different ways people silence themselves and their inner voice. Um, on the other hand, it takes the focus away from these two characters, so we get slightly less amount of time of their interaction and their growing relationship from strangers to acquaintances to friends to a young blooming romance. Uh, you feel it, but I feel like with some more time management, they could arrange the scenes where we got a bit more of their interacting, maybe. Um, but for what it is, it gets the point across, at least. Unless I was in the writing room, I don't know where I would necessarily cut to make more room. Cause this movie is about an hour and 40 minutes long, so it's nearly 2 hours. Um, and so I do feel like it. Those moments where you could say it drags a bit, but it kept my attention enough. So the pacing is a bit odd. Um, but the story is still gets what it's trying to do done. Because you also have, on top of the main storyline between the main character and the Oni girl and their growing relationship and how they help each other out, you have their personal stories, of course. So that's three storylines really. And then you have the main character's dad's storyline of him trying to hunt down his son. So that's the fourth storyline. Then you have the storyline between the Oni Girl's dad and um, her mom, and the truth behind that, which feels like another storyline. And then you have these three groupings of people that they meet along the way, which are their own storylines. So it's a lot there to tackle, and so I think it was a lot of threads, and though it all makes sense, maybe they could have weaved it in a slightly different pattern and cut the strands a bit differently, um, with some more thought. But it's still a whole uh, woven story as it is, and so I still think there is. Uh, they did a decent job for what they have. Could we still understand the story, right? So it didn't get too far away from its central theme and point. And then it also wasn't too heavy-handed with its speak your true self kind of message. I think because it had so much other stuff going on in the film that a lot of times when, say, like Disney or another big Hollywood studio does this be true to yourself, speak true to yourself kind of message, it's very shallow, and it's heavy-handed, and they're not really meaning it. What they mean is that your true self is what they dictate in their more inverted, uh, inverse, perverted way of thinking. So as long as you're in with the inverted mainstream, you need to uh, bring out that side of yourself and label it as your true self. And only is it okay to speak out when you're part of the inverted, perverse mainstream. Where this is more uh, along the lines of we have our main character who it's just being shown getting used um, and getting walked on because he has such a weak spine and such a weak sense of self. Um, and I'm sure there could be different, better ways to show a young boy finding his true sense of self better. But I think for what this movie is, it does a decent job at what it's trying to do. And I think it's better than any modern Hollywood Disney-fied shallow version of that kind of message. And so, where I would want to roll my eyes at that kind of message, I think it serves itself well because there's so much else to the story. Um, and once they get to once the Oni girl and our main character get to their destination, their shrine, they're met by her dad, who's there because he's looking for her, his daughter, the Oni girl, and he still won't tell her why, but he says that she won't find her mom there. And so she gets upset and leaves. And our main character chases after her, trying to help her, because at this point they made such a good connection that now he deeply just wants to help her as a friend. Um, One thing that I did skip over, in one of the three people that they meet that all have a very similar, the quieting their inner voice kind of moments, and moments where they have to, they'll eventually speak up to whoever they need to speak up um, to do it, even if it's themselves. Um, they're at an inn, and the Oni girl gets knocked out from one of these snow gods, and our main character works at the inn to cover the payment of staying there until she recovers. And so there's a big chunk of this part of the story where she's unconscious, and so that means there's even less time of us seeing them interact. And on one hand, you can say it shows us how selfless our main character is, but also a big chunk of this of the story, and it's something that when we talk about more in a minute, is their bond. So having her knocked out and not being able to interact with our main character, I feel like it's a missed opportunity. And we also see at this inn, like a lot of the other adults that they're running into, and they're helping uh, them speak their inner voice, their true selves outwardly. Um, all these adults are also helping them, the Oni girl and our main character, and they're also complimenting the Oni girl and our main character, especially um, for who he truly is, and seeing the good qualities of him, which is in contrast to his father thinking, well, this is where you're are failing. This is where your weak spots are. This is what you need to work on. I know what's best for you. I know how you need to fix your flaws in your character. Do this, and you'll be better off. But it's a father's duty to, uh, sharpen his son for uh, his son's character for uh, the outside world ahead. However, there's those positive ways of doing it and there's negative ways of doing it. And the ways that it that they're showing his father of trying to help our main character out is that he's doing it in a more negative way. He's not really listening to what his son needs or wants to adjust how he's helping his son in a more helpful way. So there's, like that lack of communication. And it's partially on the dad's end for not listening, and partially on the main character's falls for faults for not having a tough spine, a strong sense of self, and speaking up. Um, and it's also that those things during when you're so close to something, uh, sometimes it's harder to see certain things. Sometimes your uh, narrow vision, you're not really, you have blind spots on certain aspects when you're so close to people, and oftentimes, it's kind of that uh, dullness of your family knows you very well, and sometimes they don't know you well in certain areas. So, it's the whole uh, spectrum of family dynamics, and how beautiful they can be, and how uh, hard they can be to maintain. And we see a lot of these people all have good intentions. They're just discouraged or beaten down for one reason or the other, because of their own fault, flaws. And so the encouragement that the main character gets from this older guy who, him and his wife runs the inn, encourages our main character to call his dad and his mom, and uh, let him know that he's okay. He's needing to go on this journey, which, in the sense of people like Robert Bly's work, um, with like Iron John and male initiations. There is a sense where, and you know, females, women have their own versions of this, but right now, again, we're just talking about male initiations, where there needs to be a moment where the male uh, leaves the mother's world, leaves the home, and is brought into the father's world. And sometimes it's not done necessarily by the father, but by a third male figure, whether it's an uncle or some kind of prominent figure in a tribe, and they will take them out into the woods, and uh, do their initiation. And so sometimes, the saying goes, sometimes it takes that third perspective, the outside perspective. Um, so that's really what this is showing here, is uh, the son needing a initiation, a rite of passage, to find a true sense of self. Uh, so, paralleling the inner and the outward world, which we'll come back to in a minute as well. And of course, the My Oni Girl, the Oni Girl, the typical character, can be seen as somewhat of a manic pixie dream girl kind of like character for our main character. So, anyways, uh, currently we're at the point where they get to the alleged uh, temple in the shrine in the human world, where the Oni girl thinks she's gonna meet her mom, who ran away allegedly when she was young, and she wants to find. And instead, she meets her dad there, who went to the shrine to go find his daughter. And he says, "You're not going to find your mom here." He still won't tell her the full truth. And she runs away. Our main character runs after her because he cares for the Oni girl. And they get into this huge fight because of both their emotions kind of getting the better of them. And they uh, they go their separate ways, and that's when we see more of these energetic snowballs leaving the main character's body, and we come to find out that that happens to people when they don't um, find or speak up their true voice. And over time, once you leak enough energy, you turn into our Oni. And in this movie, Onis are beings that really have no sense of true self or inner voice. So one could say they're kind of soulless. They lack a certain human element, which um, it's also said that the Oni girl, she was born an Oni. So there are beings that are born Onis, but humans can also turn into Onis once they leak enough energy for suppressing their inner voice, their inner will, you could say, their inner spirit enough, and it leaks out in energetic snowballs. And so, right now, let's go over what Oni is. So, Oni in Japanese folklore is a yokai, some kind of spirit or demon or jinn, genie, whatever you want to refer to it as, fairy, that are described more like orcs or trolls with horns that live oftentimes in mountainous areas. And I am actually going to uh, read off a little bit um, more of what a Oni is for you. Give me 1 second to pull it up. So, a Oni are a class of yokai, supernatural creatures often depicted as hulking ogre-like demons with horns and tusks, wielding iron clubs. They are typically portrayed as malevolent beings, punishers of the wicked, or bringers of disaster. Though in some stories they can be benign or even protective. Okay, so that's a little blurb. Let me get out Wikipedia. Of course, Wikipedia isn't the most trustworthy source, but it kind of gives us an idea, right? So, an Oni is a kind of yokai, demon, orc, ogre, troll in Japanese folklore. They are believed to live in caves or in deep areas of mountains, or even times hell itself. Oni are known for their superhuman strength and have been associated with powers like thunder and lightning, along with their evil nature manifesting in their desire for murder or cannibalism. They are typically portrayed as hulking figures with one or more horns growing out of their heads, massive teeth, and occasionally a third eye in the center of the forehead. They are typically depicted with red, blue, or black, or even yellow skin, wearing loincloths or tiger pelts, and carrying iron clubs. They also have 3 to 6 digits on each hand or foot, tipped with claws like nails. Oni are able to change their looks to fool their victims into trusting them. Oni can be male or female, but have predominantly been male throughout mythology. Female Onis are sometimes referred to Yamayuba, probably butchering that Japanese word. When in disguise, Oni are capable of appearing as male or female regardless of gender. As monstrous as Oni are, they can also be seen to be linked to bringing good fortune or wealth in some cases. They're also connected to, in Taoism, the idea of the demon gate. So there we go, a little bit of that. Of course, this can also be seen to be connected to ideas of Yeti, the abominable snowman, and other creatures like the Hellier goblins and gnomes and fairy elves, dwarves, and even giants and Nephilim association with mountains and caves. There are even more modern instances of people mountain climbing and seeing Michelin men kind of snow creatures up on the mountain throughout caves and whatnot. You even have the idea of, like UFOs in cave systems and aliens in cave systems. And like USOs and whatnot. So we had this idea of these beings residing in snowy, mountainous areas and all having similar mythologies about them and traits and tales throughout cultures and history. We also have the idea of the king of the world on the mountain, and mountains being related to polar symbolism and central, having a, a mountain symbolizing a, the pillar or a obelisk of such, or the throne. Of Polaris, where the king of the world sits at, God for the North Star, and this idea of, in the idea of like the Kali Yuga uh, mythology and whatnot, having this prophecy of the king of the world returning, and that being connected with like ant people, or like an underground civilization, breakaway civilization of some kind, of sometimes it's human, sometimes it's just humanoid beings, sometimes they're not humanoid beings at all, and they're just various kind of beings coming back with the king of the world. So we have this like resurrection kind of new age bringer kind of motif as well, and all these ideas that like people like Mario Garza talks about of symbolic studies, or Rene Guénon, this idea that cultures all around the world used to arrange the houses and their villages, the towns, more cylindrical, more round, to homage this order, this like above, as above, so below kind of idea, reflecting the way that the heavens all spin around the North Star, God's throne room. Which we see come more into play in the next part of the movie, when our main character, because he is now at his lowest point of the movie after getting in a fight with the Oni Girl, and him feeling like he's unable to speak use his true voice, his inner voice, and he's being misunderstood. and having people kind of walk on him and uh, step on him like a doormat and kind of dictate his life for him. He's completely spineless now. He's lost all sense of his true self, and he's leaking his last amount of snowball energy, and that's when a uh, snow god serpent eats him up. And right when the uh, snow god serpent eats him up, his dad finds him because his dad's been tracking him down. There's been like a few steps behind him throughout the majority of the movie, and his dad finally catches up to him and wants to bring his son home, but uh, his dad is unable to see the spiritual, mythical stuff happening around him. So all he sees is his son just standing there by some kind of river, creek area one moment and then vanishing in the next. And it's because the snow god is eating him up and is flying back to the mountain where all the other snow gods and Oni are in the invisible village. And his dad, feeling helpless and confused, is driving around more trying to figure out where his son went. And that's when he sees the Oni Girl, who he doesn't know is the Oni Girl. He thinks just one of his son's friends who ran away with him. He asks her where his son is and everything, and she puts two and two together from what she knows and what his dad is telling her, that he's become Oni and a snow god probably ate him. And so, with the help of her dad, so the Oni girl's dad, and the main character's dad all head off towards the mountain to see if they can uh, find our main character, or if he's fully been eaten yet. And once they get to the mountain, they ditch the main character's dad because he won't be able to go into the invisible village because he's human. He's not an Oni. And we see when they go to the invisible village, first they have to, not only do they go into like uh, some kind of like cave toll area gate, but they also cross a small little bridge that has a stream going under it. And we know the connections between Fey folk uh, and streams, right? That it's usually where Fays reside, and it also kind of dictates energetic borders to where they can go and where they can't go. So there's like this mystical element of water, of course, which snow is also water. So I guess we can note that there. So we get this idea of like ley lines and whatnot. Then we actually get to see the invisible village when we go inside of it, and it's not everything is round, but it is still kind of built in this like circular, semicircular kind of fashion. Um, and we see that the village is kind of in shambles right now, in panic mode, because of how all the snow gods have went from protecting the invisible village of these yokai oni beings from the humans and keeping them veiled from now fully just eating them. And our main character is there. He gets kind of spewed out from the snow god that ate him, because he starts kind of radiating this energy, because he starts getting these voices of and visions of this woman, uh, and her perspective, and all the stuff that happened to her, and she keeps on calling out for the Oni girl, and of course, this are visions from her mom that he's picking up on. And whatever energy that puts off has made the snow gods spit him out, and dissolve. So he he's the Oni now in the invisible village, and he is taken to this elderly woman who is presumably the leader of the invisible village, and she seems to kind of know what's going on, but she's not willing to really do much to change things. And that's where our two main characters are reunited. Um, and we get a little bit more of the backstory of what her mom really is. So and the relationship between the snow gods and the Oni yokai beings. So, like I mentioned, they was once kind of in a symbiotic relationship with the snow god, serpent, eel, dragon beings, and the Oni yokai, where the snow god would help veil them from the human world. And in return, they had this ritual, or there was a shrine, a temple, at the center of this kind of Oni village mountain area place that they're at, called Oni Island, and it's like a hot spring oasis. So it's like a tropical oasis in the center of this, you know, frozen landscape mountain. was always snowing. And again, this is indicative of stories like we see this in Avatar: The Last Airbender with the spirit oasis and everything, and how it uses veils in the North and South Pole and everything. Um, it's fully in line with this polar geocentric symbolism. And in the movie My Oni Girl, they explain that they have to choose one person, one maiden, one woman to essentially go to this central temple in the hidden village called Oni Island at this oasis. And they have to put on this mask and they have to stay there, and they basically um, are a stand-in like sacrifice for these snow gods to help what they think is protecting the Oni people, the Oni beings from the human world. So again, this is like northern polar gateway kind of symbolism, polar symbolism. And the Oni girl and our main character learn that if they journey through this crazy snowstorm back to the now abandoned uh, Oni oasis, Oni Island, Central Point, and find the mask that these maidens wear and destroy it, that would basically be voiding the contract and breaking the seal between the Oni and the snow gods. And the last maiden sacrifice that did it was the Oni girl's mom, and that's what she really was. So they go there, they journey to the center oasis to go to the temple, find the mass, break the mass, and see if they can rescue her mom. Who's who's been there for years, um, and we now this is where we kind of get the idea that the emotional journey of going inward, finding your true self, speaking your true self, sharpening your character, speaking, with a solid foundation, holding yourself firm, you know, having a spine, using your true voice. That emotional story is being paralleling the physical journey that they're going on. They originally thought it was an outward journey that the Oni girl needed to leave the hidden oasis, go into the human world to find her mom. But she learned things. She met people that helped her. But the main part of the journey is, of course, her going inward, learning from herself. Same thing with all these other characters that they met throughout their journey. uh, both the Oni Girl's dad and the main character's dad, even the main character's journey himself. And it's what a lot of these rites of passage, initiations, rituals are meant for, is uh, moving from not just the mother's world to the father's world, or the boyhood to manhood, the death and rebirth in a symbolic sense. But it is as much of a inward journey as it is a outward journey. Because that's when you figure out your virtues, what you stand for as a man, and what your journey is that you need to go on. Your what you're supposed to do as a man in life, what God has laid out before you to do in your script, as we like to say here. And so I really enjoyed that the physical journey parallel the inward journey in a sense. And so they make it to the center, they find the mask, they break the mask, uh, they're able to find and reconnect and bring back the Oni Girl's mother. And we find out that she had, through her sacrifice, she was been connected to all of the hidden village through being in this like spirit world. And she started to grieve for not being able to be there for her daughter and her husband, and feeling like her sacrifice was basically pointless if she couldn't be there for her daughter, which we can see parallels to, in the modern era with like work-life balance, right? Like you want to provide for your kids, whether you're, a husband or wife or mother or father, but you also don't want to give your kids up to, the government. You don't want strangers ruin, ruining your kids by giving them pseudo initiations and perverting them. You want to you want to be able to, have a healthy family and spend time and have memories and be a, perfect idealistic family as much as you can be. And so in a way, her sacrificing herself to be this maiden sacrifice for the snow gods is kind of paralleling work-life balance in a way. And so she gives up that position, and no one replaces her. They break the mask. Everyone gets to say what they want to say. The mother apologizes. The daughter forgives. The father reunites with his wife and his daughter. Uh, our main character turns back into human. He's not the Oni anymore. He reconnects with his father and is mending their relationship. And he is able to say that he has feelings for the Oni Girl now. And the Oni Girl is able to say that she's got feelings for him. And everyone gets to live happily ever after. And we get snapshots of all the people that they met on their journey, you know, uh, and where they are in life, and they were happily ever afters and whatnot. Um, the last part of the movie that I just kind of skipped over that I want to go back to before I wrap this up here is there is a moment where the Oni girl, when she's trying to find her mom and guide her back from like the spirit world back to uh, this Oni village, Oni oasis reality, um, physical reality. She's like going through the snowstorm, and she's guided back by these golden footsteps that are um, echoes of the footsteps that our main character was going on his part of the journey. And every time she takes a step and uses them to guide her back like breadcrumbs, um, each step gives her a vision of their journey that they had together, the Oni girl and our main character, from his point of view. So she's kind of understanding him a bit more. So she's literally kind of like walking in his shoes, um, by using his footprints as like spiritual breadcrumbs to guide her back home. And the last step she takes, she sees the vision from the beginning of the film. Remember when I said that before they meet and our main character sees the Oni girl trying to pay for public transportation in a bus, and he starts to just he sees her and he starts to just continue walking off, and he stops and turns around because he feels a spiritual pull that is um, I refer to it as like the registering of fate. It's kind of being pulled into that direction. Well, that's what the other end is. The other end of that registering of fate was her stepping in his final footprint and seeing that moment from his perspective with the full uh, revelation of their relationship from the ending of the story. So it's kind of this um, moment of what I kind of hinted at earlier, where uh, time isn't linear in that fashion, where we will have, you know, moments of ourselves um, with heightened sense of emotions that will permeate not just the present but echo in all directions to the past and the future, right? That's when people talk about trying to quote manifest things, and they say you got to uh, feel like you've already received what you're wanting to get, right? Um, you have to feel the emotion of the outcome to help create what you're wanting to occur to cause the outcome. Um, and this is not just in New Age kind of spaces either. Jesus even talks about this a little bit as well um, in his teachings. Is this whole idea of your emotions towards one thing will shape your perspective. So if you have a lot of fear for the future and you're not doing anything but fearing for the future, your future is probably going to be pretty bleak because you're not laying down any fruit, you're not doing any physical labor, you're not planning for the future, you're not being grateful for what you have in the present to plant the seeds for the future. Or same thing with the past. If you have nothing but hatred for your family and your ancestors and your culture, very similar to what they're doing with Western, the Western world, Western civilization, and like Europeans, Irish, Slavic, American, North America, all those regions, and just decades and upon decades of at this point of saying, you know, quote, white people have no culture and everything that Western civilization, European civilization has is evil and down with all of these historical figures with quote non-PC quote problematic past, and we need to dismantle history and all this and that. Like they're reshaping the present and the future by having us hate the past. And it's also a lot of times from um, I know some of us can relate to this where you know we think, oh, this is going to happen, and we don't understand why we know that something certain is going to happen. We just have the gut feeling. Then it happens, and then we might have a thought like, did that happen because I thought it was going to happen, or was that always meant to happen? And, because on this side of heaven, we have no means of knowing how the inner workings of what God has laid out before us on certain things, right? We only have our copy of the script. We don't have all the behind the scenes director's notes and stuff that may not pertain to us that He didn't let us see. So we don't fully uh, know that, and that's like that even gets into things like metaphysics, and how uh, you know uh, that kind of spirit science, or whatever you want to refer to as, has explained uh, the frequencies, the energies that make up our universe, and how uh, things get uh, matter gets manifested. The observer observing the observation, so on and so forth, and all that kind of stuff, and string theory and all that other stuff, that quantum stuff that they will rattle on about. Very similar to that as well. Um, So I thought that was interesting in the way that they showed it. And we see that a lot in Eastern anime films, like that use the Wrestling of Fate, movies like Your Name. Uh, you, there's also something that the author Philip K. Dick used in his short story, The Adjustment Team, which was adapted into the movie The Adjustment Bureau, uh, which is a pretty decent movie as well. Anyway, so wrapping up here, let's see if I have anything else in my notes. I don't think so. I think I hit most of what I wanted to talk about. Let's see. Okay, so like I said, beyond the Japanese folklore, which I think the Japanese folklore is also connecting to Polish symbolism because every culture talks about this geocentric kind of idea within the North Star. My Oni Girl imagery of snowy mountains and hidden northern village taps into the rich vein of Polish symbolism found across world cultures. The idea of far north or the mountaintop as a sacred mystical locus is one that recurs in mythologies from ancient Hindu cosmology to Norse legend to esoteric modern thought. Often the North Pole or world mountain represents the axis mundi, the cosmic axis or world pillar connecting heaven and earth. This is the world center, a spiritual and metaphysical anchor. Many traditions placed a paradise or holy city at the world center or summit of the world mountain, accessible only to the worthy. Scholar Gyrus, author of North, the Rise of and Fall of Polar of the North, the Rise and Fall of the Polar Cosmos, describes humanity as long been fascinated with the North Star and polar cosmics and the polar cosmic center. In ancient cosmologies, the pole star fixed the sky while all the other stars were around it. It got associated with supreme power, divine order, and transcendence. Emperors and kings often liken themselves to the pole star, if movable at the center, guiding and governing the turning world. For example, in the Chinese tradition, the emperor was symbolically compared to the pole star. Confucius wrote, "One who governs through virtue may be compared to the pole star, which occupies its space while the host of other stars pay homage to it." Ancient Chinese capitals were even laid out with the imperial throne in the north facing south, mirroring the idea of the emperor at the cosmic north axis of the world. Similarly, many sacred cities and temples around the world were deliberately aligned to the cardinal directions and the pole to tap into the power of the center. For instance, the pole star was considered the throne of the supreme deity in some Asian tradition, sometimes called the Purple Palace in China. In Norse mythology, the concept of the sacred center appeals as Yggdrasil, the world tree. at the geographical center of the spiritual cosmos, with all the worlds arrayed around it. The Norse also imagine a radiant city of the gods, Asgard, accessible via a rainbow bridge that emanates from the center of the world. And in the Hindu Buddhist cosmology, there is Mount Meru, a golden mountain at the universe's middle, revered as the center of all physical, metaphysical, and spiritual universes, about which the stars and planets rotate. Mount Meru is essentially the mythic North Pole of that cosmology. Some scholars explicitly note it is analogous to the world's polar axis in the ways it functions in myth. All these examples illustrate common motif: North Center Mountain as the holiest point, the origin, destiny of spiritual thinking. In My Oni Girl, we see clear echoes of this polar symbolism. Their journey is toward the remote mountain temple and the hidden village at the top of the world, perpetually enshrouded in snow. This setting evokes the idea of secret polar paradise or other world. In fact, modern esoteric lore speak of Agartha or Shambhala, legendary kingdoms, legendary hidden kingdoms, often said to exist in the mountains Central Asia or deep in the Arctic, where the king of the world rules society of enlightened beings. French occultist writer René Guénon popularized this legend in Le Roi du Monde, describing Agartha as a subterranean spiritual center of humanity ruled by the enlightened sovereign king of the world. This figure was said to guide the destiny of the world from his mountain sanctum, remaining hidden during the current dark age until a time of renewal. The parallels to the film Oni the parallels in the film Oni's Village are very intriguing. We have an isolated mountain community of otherworldly beings, the Oni, overseen by a chieftain, the village chief, and kept hidden from the outside world by walls of storms and the snow gods. The Oni village can be seen as a folkloric reflection of Shambhala or Gotha idea, a magical enclave at the world's edge or center, depending on your perspective. That the ordinary world doesn't know in the film, once the snow god's power is broke, the barrier between the Oni village and the outside melts away, hinting that perhaps a new era integration begins. Just as in some prophecies, the hidden kingdom of Gartha is supposed to reveal itself when the time is right. So we got some of that, which I find is very interesting. What I'm reading from is I actually fed my ideas. I basically gave a short version of this kind of podcast I'm giving now to my ChatGPT, and I was seeing what ChatGPT said in response. So right now I'm just kind of going through a little bit of what ChatGPT said to me in response to what I told it. Just for fun here at the end. So to continue, mountains in mythology nearly always symbolize connecting with the divine. One moment, guys.
There's no place like home.
Play it, Sam. All right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up. You're now tuned in to Channel KOK, the Mythic Movie Network.
In realms between the night and day, where myths and legends softly play, tune in, brave hearts, and you shall see the magic woven on your screen, where heroes rise and stories blend, and every tale finds journey's end. Within these frames the myths revive, where modern dreams and legends thrive. Static buzz, midnight screen, truth wrapped in a silver sheen. You didn't tune in, the story called, and now the myth's unspooled for all. No fear here, no cheap disguise, just sacred fire in modern guise. This isn't just projection light, it's the soul in a technicolor delight. This is Channel KOK, a mythic flame within the storm. You didn't tune in, the story called, and now the myth's unspooled for all. No fear here, no cheap disguise, just sacred fire in modern guise. This isn't just projection light, it's the soul in a technicolor delight. You're now tuned into Channel KOK. 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 Dreams, you're the nightmare. From the fool's first step to the wizard's sacrifice, in Gandalf's transformation, see the Christ within the light. In the lightning of Doc Brown, like Zeus's spark divine. Every film a myth reborn, every scene a sacred sign. This is Channel KOK, where reels reveal what's real, and myths return to wake the soul in every spinning wheel. Movies are the modern myth, the flame, the right, the key. You're not just watching, you're the one. The role was cast as thee. Takes the gun, leave the cannoli.
So, okay, I'm back. So to continue on with reading the chat GPT response to what I've been talking about with this movie, My Oni Girl. Okay. Mountains in mythology nearly always symbolize connecting with the divine. Climbing a mountain is universal metaphor for spiritual journey and challenge. In the Access Community concept, a high mountain is literally a point of contact between the earth and heaven. Many traditions hold certain peaks as holy and have tales of heroes ascending to receive wisdom. Moses on Mount Sinai talking to God, or Buddha attaining enlightenment atop a mountain in Eastern thought. Hermits going to the mountains signify devoting oneself to spiritual practices, or also reflection, I would say, of like going inward, like we're talking about here. Indeed, in Chinese literature, to go into the mountain meant to dedicate oneself to a spiritual life. We see this in My Oni Girl, initially, he is a normal high schooler, essentially goes into the mountain, both literally and figuratively, leaving behind everyday life to embark on a quest that will profoundly change him. His pilgrimage to the mountaintop temple to find his friend, the Oni Girl's mother, is likewise a spiritual test. The hardships both our main character and the Oni Girl face, bitter weather, hostile spirits, exhaustion, injury, reflect the classic tropes that one must suffer or be purified while ascending the sacred mountain. So the hero's journey. Tests and trials, the obstacle is the way. And at the story's climax, the mountain yields revelation and reconciliation. The truth about the Oni family finally comes out, and the emotional atmosphere literally changes from blizzards to clear skies, as if the inner climate, their spiritual, emotional state, and the outer climate, the mountain weather, are one. When harmony is achieved in the hearts, it is reflective in nature. Perpetual winter ends, and spring can come again, even at the pole. This aligns with polar mist symbolism, where the end of the ice age or winter apocalypse gives way to a new golden age. In the esoteric legend, the hidden land at the pole is often associated with a lost golden age. Satyri Yuga, or Eden, and the journey north or to the mountain can be seen as a return to a primordial paradise. In the film, our main character and the Oni Girl's journey is to literally reunite her family. I would say also like his, because he's got a distinguished relationship with his father at the beginning. And to free her village from the cursed winter, effectively restoring a kind of Edenic normalcy. It is worth noting how My Oni Girl is also subtly touches on the idea of inner compass or true north. The true north is that fixed point by which a traveler can orient themselves symbolically. It means one guiding principle or authentic path. For our main character, part of his hero's journey is discovering his own true north, his own will and voice. In a metaphysical sense, the north often symbolizes the highest spiritual truth, as many cultures place heaven or the source of wisdom in the northern sky, the North Star, Polaris. Some spiritual writers even equate their journey inward with their journey northward, a return to one's source. In Christian mysticism, for example, there is the notion that the kingdom of God is within you. Luke 17:21, meaning one finds God not by traveling to some external Mount Zion, but by turning inward to the heart, the I am aspect mentioned, recalling God's declaration, I am that I am, Exodus 3:14, is a powerful symbol of divine selfhood present in each person. Finding one's true north can be thus be seen finding the divine center within oneself, the immovable pole star of the soul, the guides through life's tempest. We might draw a parallel between the pulsar in the sky and the pulsar of one's conscience or faith. In My Oni Girl, our main character's conscience and love for the Oni Girl becomes his Polaris. When he centers on that, when he focuses on protecting what he cares about and being true to himself, he gains the navigation needed to get through chaos and reunite with his father. I would say, quite literally guiding himself through the snowstorm to reach her. The connection between the physical pole mountain and the inner spiritual axis is often made in mystical literature, noted that temples and sacred cities were conceived as microcosm of the cosmos, with the inner sacred center that corresponds to the cosmic center. Likewise, a person aligned with true north has an inner center, a personal axis mundi, around which their thoughts and actions harmonize. In the film, once our main character aligns with his true north, his authentic love and courage, the external world, the swirling fate around him also aligns favorably. The Oni Girl, too, follows her inner compass of devotion to family and truth, and her love for our main character, which leads her through every peril. The mountain they climb is both an outward and inner ascent. Okay, so that is a little bit of what my ChatGPT said in response to my ideas. It also gave me a bit on linear time, but I don't want to read all that to you guys. I just thought that the North Star polar symbolism was kind of our main point here. If I read on any more, I'm going to become even more redundant than what I already am. So, thanks for tuning in for this impromptu, laid back, soft launch of AniMason over the anime film My Oni Girl, over its connection between polar symbolism, metaphysics, myths, and non-linear time. Stay tuned. I'll do more AniMasons probably on YouTube officially. I don't know if I'm gonna do any more on here on X Spaces. Just wanted to kind of word vomit my thoughts on this because I was pretty impressed with the actual symbolism and message of My Oni Girl, for all of its storytelling flaws and editing flaws between scene to scenes, and kind of repetitive messaging here and there about fluffy, finding your true self and everything. I thought the way it did it lent itself to a bit of a deeper resonance than some other movies that have similar narratives and messages. So I just wanted to go on here and kind of talk about it a bit more. So thanks for watching. Check out channel KOK on YouTube. King of Cups TV on YouTube. On Instagram, I think it's also King of Cups TV on Instagram. On X, we are channel KOK TV. And stay tuned for more X Spaces and full on YouTube discussions with King and the Branch. On channel KOK. And remember, Amor Fati. See you guys next time.
In the kingdom beneath the ever-falling skies, where the towers drown in sapphire mist, rain etches sermons on the stone and glass, and time rewinds in magnetic hiss. We watch the North Star flicker above, a reel spinning in God's holy machine. Angels with lights and celestial gloves, framing each breath behind the screen. They spoke in tapes and chromatic tones, scrolls of VHS inside cathedral halls, words in static, hymns and dial tones, faith broadcast through rainfall's calls, dreams projected on the castle wall, bleeding silver in the ancient night, a script divine in the thunder scroll, where gods direct and ghosts recite. We watch the North Star flicker above, a reel spinning in God's holy machine. Angels with lights and celestial gloves, framing each breath behind the screen. And when the moon became a lens of fate, we prayed in fuzz, not candlelight. Each frame a prayer, the reels create in God's cinema of endless night. We watched the